The candlelight flickered, casting shadows that danced across the crisp white tablecloth. My heart pounded so loudly I swore the waiter could hear it from across the room. I was sitting across from James Carter, my boss, in a restaurant far too fancy for my paycheck, wondering how the hell I'd ended up here. It was a Thursday night in Seattle, the city's skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Ivory Room. I, Alex Harper, a 25-year-old graphic designer barely a year into my job at Carter & Co., was trying not to spill red wine on my borrowed dress shirt. James, my 42-year-old boss, sat opposite me, his tailored suit impeccable, his smile disarming. He'd invited me to dinner to discuss my future, but the way his eyes lingered felt like something else entirely. I wasn't naive. I'd caught the glances, the subtle touches on my shoulder during meetings, but this was new territory, and I was terrified. "Relax, Alex," James said, his voice smooth as the Cabernet he swirled in his glass. "You're doing great work. Tonight's about celebrating that." His words were warm, but there was an edge to them, like a promise with a hidden clause. I nodded, forcing a smile, my mind racing. Was this a promotion? A test? Or something I wasn't ready to name? I'd always known I was different. Growing up in a small town outside Spokane, I'd hidden my truth behind football games and fake crushes, terrified of what my parents would say if they knew I was gay. Moving to Seattle was my escape, my chance to be myself. But even here, I kept my guard up. Work was my sanctuary until James. He was magnetic, powerful, the kind of man who commanded a room without trying. And I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed him too. The waiter cleared our plates, leaving behind the remnants of a chocolate torte we'd shared. James leaned forward, his gaze locking onto mine. "Alex," he said, his voice dropping low, "there's something I need to tell you." My stomach twisted. This was a moment I'd been dreading and craving since he'd asked me to dinner. I braced myself, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. He reached across the table, his hand brushing mine, deliberate and electric. "I've watched you for months," he said. "You're not just talented. You're special. I want you to know I see you, all of you." My breath caught. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? My mind spun, torn between fear and a dangerous spark of hope. I'd spent so long hiding, but here was James, seeing me, maybe wanting me. Yet something in his tone, a flicker of hesitation, made my chest tighten. The conversation shifted after that, lighter topics masking the weight of his words. We talked about the firm's latest campaign, my designs, his vision for the company. But his confession hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. As we left the restaurant, the cool night air hit my face, and I realized I was trembling not from the cold, but from the unspoken question, what did James Carter really want from me? Back at my tiny Capitol Hill apartment, I couldn't sleep. His words replayed in my mind. "I see you, all of you." Did he know I was gay? Had I been too obvious? Or was this something else? Something more dangerous? I stared at my phone, tempted to text him, to ask what he meant, but fear stopped me. Instead, I opened my sketchbook, drawing the curve of his jaw, the intensity of his eyes, trying to make sense of the man who'd just turned my world upside down. The next day at work, the office buzzed with its usual chaos, phones ringing, designers arguing over fonts, coffee cups littering every desk. I tried to focus, but every time James walked by, my pulse spiked. He acted normal, professional, but his smile carried a secret. By noon, he called me into his office. "Alex," he said, closing the door, "we need to talk about last night." My heart stopped. This was a moment of truth. He stepped closer, his voice low. "I meant what I said. I want you to be part of something bigger here. And maybe beyond. His words were vague, tantalizing, and terrifying. I nodded, unsure what I was agreeing to. But the pull of his presence was undeniable. I was in deep, and I didn't know if I wanted to swim or drown. James's office smelled of leather and expensive cologne, a stark contrast to the cluttered design floor outside. I stood there, my hands clammy, as he leaned against his desk, his eyes searching mine. "Alex," he said, "I need someone I can trust. Someone who gets me." His words were a lifeline and a trap, pulling me closer to a man I barely understood. I'd spent the morning replaying last night's dinner, dissecting every glance, every word. Was James flirting? Manipulating? Or was I reading too much into it? I'd always been cautious, keeping my personal life locked away, especially at work. But James had a way of unraveling me, making me want to spill every secret I'd ever kept. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I obeyed, my mind racing. He didn't sit, though-paced, his energy restless. "The firm's at a turning point," he said. "We're pitching to a major client next month, Evergreen Tech. If we land this, it's game-changing. I want you leading the design team." My jaw dropped. Me? I was barely out of my probationary period. "You've got the vision," he continued, his voice earnest. "And I trust you." I should have been thrilled, but doubt gnawed at me. Was this about my work, or something else? His hand grazed my shoulder as he handed me a folder, the touch lingering just a second too long. "Review this," he said. "We'll discuss it over coffee tomorrow. Just you and me." My throat tightened. Another meeting. Another moment alone with him. I nodded, clutching the folder like a shield. Back at my desk, I tried to focus, but my thoughts kept drifting to James. His charm, his intensity, it was intoxicating. I'd never met anyone like him. Growing up, I dreamed of a life where I could be open, love freely, but fear had always won. Now, here was James, offering me something I couldn't quite name. A chance, a risk, a connection. But at what cost? That night, I met my best friend, Mia, at a dive bar in Fremont. She was the only person I'd come out to, the only one who knew the real me. Over cheap beer, I spilled everything: dinner, James's words, the job offer. "Alex," she said, her eyes narrowing, "be careful. He's your boss. Power like that, it complicates things." Her words hit hard, echoing my own fears. Was I falling for him, or for the idea of being seen? The next morning, James and I met at a cozy cafe near the office. He was casual today, his suit jacket draped over the chair, his sleeves rolled up. "So," he said, stirring his coffee, "what do you think of the Evergreen pitch?" I launched into my ideas, nervous but excited, and he listened, really listened, his eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, he smiled. "You're brilliant, Alex. I knew I was right about you." His praise warmed me, but then he leaned closer, his voice dropping. "There's something else," he said. "I'm hosting a retreat for the team next weekend at my cabin in the Cascades. I want you there not just as a designer, but as someone I can rely on." My heart raced. A weekend away with James. It was thrilling and terrifying. I said yes before I could overthink it, my voice barely above a whisper. The week flew by in a blur of meetings and mock-ups. James was everywhere, checking my work, offering feedback, brushing past me in the hallway with a smile that felt like a secret. By Friday, I was a mess of nerves and anticipation. The retreat loomed, and with it, the question I couldn't shake: what did James really want from me? And what did I want from him? As I packed for the weekend, my phone buzzed. A text from James, looking forward to seeing you. Alex, we're going to make things happen. My hands shook as I typed a reply, my mind torn between excitement and dread. I was stepping into something bigger than myself, and there was no turning back. The Cascade Mountains loomed like silent giants as I drove to James's cabin, my stomach a knot of nerves. The retreat was billed as a team-building weekend, but the weight of James's invitation felt personal, intimate. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to focus on the winding road instead of the question burning in my mind. What was I walking into? The cabin was stunning cedar walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of snow-capped peaks. Inside, a dozen colleagues mingled, sipping wine and laughing. James greeted me at the door, his hand lingering on my arm. Glad you made it, Alex, he said, his voice warm but laced with something unspoken. I smiled, my heart racing, and joined the group, trying to blend in. The first day was a whirlwind of activity strategy sessions, design critiques, and a hike that left me breathless. James was in his element, commanding attention with effortless charm. But his eyes kept finding mine, a silent pull that made it hard to focus. By evening, as we gathered around a bonfire, I felt like I was balancing on a tightrope. Alex, walk with me, James said after dinner, his tone casual but deliberate. We strolled along a moonlit path, the crunch of gravel under our feet the only sound. You're different, he said suddenly, stopping to face me. You don't play the corporate game. That's why I need you. His words were a compliment, but they felt like a challenge. I swallowed, unsure how to respond. He stepped closer, his breath visible in the cool night air. I've been where you are, he said, hiding who I am, afraid of what it means. But you don't have to hide with me. My heart stopped. Was he coming out to me? Was this real? I wanted to ask, to confess my own truth, but fear choked me. Instead, I nodded, my voice lost. Back at the cabin, I lay awake, his words echoing. He'd seen Miralai seen Mo, but what did that mean? Was he offering friendship, mentorship, or something more? The next morning, during a team brainstorm, James paired us up for a project. Alex, you're with me, he said, his smile disarming. My colleagues exchanged glances, and I felt the weight of their curiosity. Was I the favorite, or something else? As we worked together, James's presence was electric. His hand brushed mine as we reviewed sketches, his laughter warm when I cracked a nervous joke. But doubt crept in. Mia's warning rang in my ears. Power complicates things. James was my boss, a man with influence, wealth, a life I couldn't imagine. What did I have to offer him? That night, as the team played cards, James pulled me aside. Come to the study, he said. My pulse spiked as I followed him. The room was warm, lined with books and a crackling fireplace. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing me one. To us, he toasted, his eyes locked on mine. I sipped, the burn matching the fire in my chest. Alex, he said, setting his glass down. I'm tired of pretending. I want you in my life, not just at work. My breath caught. This was a line crossed, the truth laid bare. I wanted to say I felt the same, that I dreamed of this, but fear surged. What if this was a mistake? What if I was just a game to him? I mumbled something incoherent and fled to my room, my heart pounding. Alone, I stared at the ceiling, torn between desire and doubt. James had offered me everything I'd ever wanted: connection, acceptance, maybe love. But at what cost? I was falling, and I didn't know if I'd land or crash. Morning light filtered through the cabin's windows, but I felt no clarity. James's words from last night, "I want you in my life," clung to me like damp air. I avoided him during breakfast, sticking close to my colleagues, but his presence was a magnet, pulling my gaze across the room. The retreat's final day was packed with presentations. I was supposed to pitch my designs for evergreen tech, but my mind was elsewhere. James sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. When it was my turn, I stumbled through my slides, my voice shaky. He nodded encouragingly, but I felt exposed, like he could see every doubt in my head. After the session, he cornered me in the hallway. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. I nodded, lying through my teeth. "Good," he said. "Meet me tonight. We need to finish our talk." My stomach dropped. There was no escaping this, no pretending it hadn't happened. I agreed, my voice barely audible. Back in Seattle, life resumed its rhythm, but I was off balance. Work felt different now, every interaction with James charged with meaning. My colleagues noticed, their whispers following me. "He's Carter's golden boy," one said, half joking, half bitter. I wanted to scream that it wasn't like that. But was it? I didn't even know anymore. That night, James texted me and addressed a quiet bar downtown. I arrived early, my nerves frayed. He was already there, looking effortlessly polished in a dark sweater. "Alex," he said, sliding a drink toward me. "I scared you last night, didn't I?" I nodded, unable to lie. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not good at this," he admitted. "I've spent years building walls, keeping people out. But you make me want to tear them down." His vulnerability disarmed me. I'd seen James the CEO, the leader, but this was James the man, raw, uncertain. "I'm scared too," I whispered, the words spilling out. I've never been open about who I am." His eyes softened, and for a moment, we were just two people, stripped of titles and pretenses. He reached for my hand, his touch gentle but firm. "You don't have to hide with me," he said. "I'm not out either, Alex. Not publicly. But I want to before you." My heart raced. This was real, not a game. But the weight of his words hit me. He was risking everything, his reputation, his career. And so was I. We talked for hours, the bar emptying around us. He told me about his life growing up in a conservative family, burying his truth to climb the corporate ladder. I shared my own story, small-town fear, Seattle's promise, the loneliness of hiding. By the time we left, I felt lighter, but the fear lingered. What we had was fragile, dangerous. The next week, work was a blur. James kept his distance professionally, but his texts were constant, funny, sweet, intimate. I was falling for him, hard, but doubt gnawed at me. What if this was a mistake? What if he changed his mind? Mia's voice echoed, "Be careful." But my heart wasn't listening. On Friday, James called me into his office. "Evergreen loved your designs," he said, grinning. "You nailed it." Pride swelled in me. But then he added, "There's a gala next week to celebrate. I want you there as my date." My breath caught. A public date. With James Carter. It was everything I wanted and everything I feared. I said yes, my voice trembling, knowing this would change everything. The gala was a glittering affair, held in a downtown hotel's grand ballroom. I stood in front of my mirror, tugging at my rented tux, feeling like an imposter. James had insisted on picking me up, and when his sleek black car pulled up, my heart nearly stopped. He stepped out, flawless in a tailored suit, his smile stealing my breath. "You clean up nice," he teased, opening the car door. I laughed, but my nerves were electric. This wasn't just a date, it was a statement. Seattle's elite would be there, and we were walking in together. As we entered the ballroom, heads turned. James's hand rested lightly on my back, a quiet claim that sent whispers rippling through the crowd. The night was a blur of champagne and small talk, but James never left my side. His presence was a shield, but it couldn't block the stares, the raised eyebrows. I overheard a colleague mutter, "Carter's new toy," and my stomach churned. Was that how they saw me? I pushed the thought away, focusing on James's warmth, his laughter. During a quiet moment, he pulled me onto the balcony. The city sparkled below, and he turned to me, his eyes intense. I meant what I said. "Alex," he murmured. "I'm all in." "Are you?" My throat tightened. I wanted to say yes, to dive into this, but fear clawed at me. "I'm trying," I said, my voice breaking. He cupped my face, his touch tender. "That's enough for now," he whispered, and kissed me. The kiss was everything soft, urgent, a promise. But as we returned to the gala, reality crashed in. A senior partner approached, his smile tight. "James," a word, he said, glancing at me. James squeezed my hand and followed him, leaving me alone with my doubts. When he returned, his face was grim. "They're not happy," he said. "They think the Seuss is a liability." My heart sank. A liability. The word cut deep, confirming my worst fears. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice small. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "It means we need to be careful. But I'm not giving you up." His resolve steadied me, but the weight of his words lingered. We were fighting for something bigger than ourselves, and the stakes were rising. Back at work, the tension was palpable. Colleagues whispered, and I felt their judgment in every glance. James was professional, but his protectiveness was clear-checked on me, shielded me from the worst of the gossip. But the pressure was building, and I wondered how long we could keep this up. That weekend, James invited me to his penthouse. It was my first time there, and the luxury overwhelmed memorable floors, art-covered walls, a view of Puget Sound. We cooked dinner together, laughing as we fumbled with pasta. For a moment, it was just us. No office, no judgment. But as we sat on his couch, he grew serious. "Alex," he said, "if this gets too hard, tell me. I don't want to lose you, but I don't want to hurt you either." His honesty broke something in me. I told him everything, my fear of being out, my worry that I wasn't enough, my terror of losing my job. He listened, holding me close, and promised we'd face it together. But as I left his apartment, a new fear took root. What if together wasn't enough? The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. James and I were careful at work, keeping our relationship under wraps. But the tension was suffocating. Every stolen glance, every discreet touch in the break room felt like a risk. Yet outside the office, we were unstoppable dinners, late-night walks, moments where the world faded and it was just us. But the whispers grew louder. A board member confronted James, warning him about optics. My designs, once praised, were now scrutinized, as if my talent was tied to my relationship with him. I started doubting myself, wondering if I'd earned anything on my own. Mia noticed my stress, urging me to slow down. "You're in too deep, Alex," she said. "What happens if this falls apart?" I didn't have an answer. James was my everything mentor, lover, friend, but the world wasn't ready for us. One night, after a long day, he pulled me into his office. "I'm tired of hiding," he said, his voice raw. I want to come out. Alex. For real. My heart leapt and sank at once. Coming out meant freedom, but it also meant exposure, judgment, maybe ruin. We debated for hours, weighing the risks. He'd built Carter & Co. From nothing. A scandal could destroy it. And me. I'd be the guy who slept his way to the top, no matter how untrue. But James was resolute. I love you, he said, the words hitting me like a wave. I'm not ashamed of us. I froze. Love. He'd said it, and I realized I felt it too, but fear kept me silent. The next day, James called a company meeting. My stomach churned as he stood before the team, his voice steady. I've been hiding something, he began. My heart stopped. Was he doing this now? I'm gay, he said, his eyes finding mine. And I'm in love with someone in this room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I wanted to run, to hide, but his gaze held me. He didn't name me, but everyone knew. The fallout was immediate. Some colleagues congratulated us. Others turned cold. A major client pulled out, citing instability. The board demanded a meeting, and James faced pressure to step down. I felt like the cause of it all, my guilt crushing. I'm sorry, I told him that night, tears in my eyes. He pulled me close. Don't be, he said. This is who we are. But the world wasn't kind. Social media exploded, some praising James's courage, others tearing him apart. My name surfaced, and suddenly my past me designs. My small-town roots was fodder for gossip. I stopped sleeping, haunted by the fear that I'd cost James everything. Yet he never wavered, holding my hand through every storm. One night, as we lay in his bed, he whispered, "We'll get through this." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. The company was bleeding money, and I was bleeding confidence. I loved him, but was love enough when the world was against us? The weeks after James's announcement were chaos. The office was a battlefield. Supportive colleagues clashed with those who saw us as a liability. Clients dropped, citing brand misalignment, and the board's pressure intensified. James fought back, his charisma now a weapon, but I saw the toll it took. His eyes, once bright, were shadowed with exhaustion. I was unraveling too. My designs, once my pride, felt inadequate under the scrutiny. Anonymous emails called me a distraction, accusing me of using James to climb the ladder. I stopped checking my inbox, but the words burrowed into me. Was I enough for him? For this job? For myself? Mia dragged me out for coffee, her face etched with worry. You're losing yourself, Alex, she said. You're more than his boyfriend. You're you. Her words stung, but they woke me up. I'd been so consumed by James, by us, that I'd forgotten who I was. I needed to reclaim myself. But how? That night, I confronted James. I feel like I'm drowning, I admitted, my voice shaking. I love you, but it's killing me. His face fell, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I never wanted this to hurt you, he said. If you need to walk away, I'll understand. The thought of leaving him tore me apart, but so did staying in this storm. I took a week off, retreating to my apartment to think. I sketched, not for work, but for Mew Wild, messy drawings that poured out my fear, love, hope. Slowly, I remembered why I'd come to Seattle, to be free, to be me. I wasn't just James's partner. I was Alex Harper, artist, dreamer, survivor. When I returned, James was waiting. I've been thinking, he said, his voice steady but vulnerable. I'm stepping down as CEO. My heart stopped. What? I gasped. He smiled. Bittersweet. The company's my past. You're my future. I want to build something new with you. He proposed starting a design studio. Just us. Free from corporate games. The idea was exhilarating. Terrifying. Could we do this? Leave everything behind. I thought of my small-town self, hiding in fear, and the man I'd become brave. Flawed. In love. Yes, I said, my voice firm. Let's do it. We spent nights planning, dreaming, rebuilding. The board accepted James's resignation, and the gossip faded. We were no longer the scandal. We were just us. But the world wasn't done testing us, and I knew the hardest battles were still ahead. Starting over wasn't easy. James and I leased a small studio in Belltown, pouring our savings into it. The space was bare exposed brick, creaky floors, but it was ours. We named it Harper & Carter Designs, a promise to ourselves and each other. Every day was a risk, but for the first time, it felt like ours to take. We worked late, sketching, pitching, building a brand from scratch. Clients were hesitant. James's name carried baggage now, but our passion won them over. My designs, once overshadowed by scandal, found their voice. James was my partner in every sense, his belief in me unwavering. We fought, laughed, loved, and through it all, grew stronger. The world didn't change overnight. Hate mail came, and some doors stayed closed. But others opened. Clients who valued our authenticity, our story. We spoke at a local LGBTQ+ event, sharing our journey. The crowd's applause was a balm, healing wounds I hadn't realized I carried. I looked at James, his hand in mine, and knew we'd made the right choice. One night, a year after that fateful dinner, we sat in our studio, exhausted but happy. A major client had just signed on, and we were celebrating with cheap wine. James raised his glass, his eyes soft. To us, he said. To love, to courage, to starting over. I clinked my glass against his, my heart full. I was shaking that night, I admitted, laughing. When you said you saw me, I thought my world was ending. He grinned, pulling me close. It was just beginning, he said. And he was right. We'd lost so much status, security, but we'd gained everything that mattered, each other, our truth, a future we'd built together. As we locked up the studio, the city lights glowed around us. I thought of that small-town boy, afraid of his own heart, and the man I'd become, open, loved, free. James took my hand, and we walked into the night, ready for whatever came next. The shaking was gone, replaced by a quiet, unshakable strength.